Welcome to Wendell Clark's Classic Grill and Bar in Saskatoon for another episode of the YXE Sports Podcast. Of course, we are live on the Wendell Clark's Classic Grill and Bar Facebook page, the YXE Sports Podcast Facebook page, and no YXE. And of course, a big hello to everybody that's listening to the audio version of the YXE Sports Podcast. Matt Morrison riding solo with you once again. So we're going to try to talk for 20 minutes or so straight because Ray Morrison has left me again, but me and him both determined that the show is better with just me anyway, so we're going to try this again. Lots of sports action to get to and to talk about, most notably the Canadian Football League. Yes, it was the long-awaited return of the Canadian Football League, and the Saskatchewan Roughriders season, of course, kicked off on Friday, and they escaped with a 33-29 victory over the BC Lions in week one. And in classic Rider fashion, they almost blew it. They were up 31 or 32-0, I do believe, and they allowed the BC Lions to come roaring back into the game, but they did escape with a 33-29 victory, and it's just a good thing that the BC Lions kicker couldn't kick anything on Friday, because to be honest, that's probably the only reason why the Saskatchewan Roughriders won, but they did win. They are 1-0. Cody Fajardo, quarterback for the Saskatchewan Roughriders, went 28 for 35, 230 yards passing. He also had 2 touchdown passes on Friday for the Saskatchewan Roughriders. Shaq Evans was in midseason form as well, 69 receiving yards on 7 catches. And the defense played pretty good for the Saskatchewan Roughriders as well. A lot has been made of the Saskatchewan Roughriders offensive line and how they might struggle throughout the course of the 2021 season. However, they only gave up 2 sacks to the BC Lions defensive units on Friday. So hopefully that's a trend that can continue for the Saskatchewan Roughriders as they move on to week 2 of the CFL season. Of course, the Saskatchewan Roughriders are at home at Mosaic Stadium down in Regina on Saturday, August the 14th. The Hamilton Tiger Cats come to town. So the Saskatchewan Roughriders have an opportunity to come out of the gate 2-0 on the 2021 CFL season. Of course, the first four out of the first 5 games for the Saskatchewan Roughriders are at home at Mosaic Stadium. So a huge opportunity for the Riders to use that hometown crowd to their advantage and that home field advantage to try to get them off to a roaring start here in 2021. Of course, the very first game of the Canadian Football League season was on Thursday. The technical defending Grey Cup champions are still the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, and they beat the Hamilton Tiger Cats by a score of 19-6. So they got off their season on the right foot. The Toronto Argonauts were able to sneak past Calgary 23-20 on Saturday. That was a little bit of a surprise. Can't remember the last time the Calgary Stampeders started the season 0-1. But here we are. It is the year of craziness, so I would expect nothing less. And then on Saturday, the second part of a doubleheader, the Ottawa Redblacks escaped Edmonton with a 16-12 victory against the newly named Edmonton Elks. That was one heck of a football game as well. The first 57 minutes and 30 seconds of that game, I would say, were incredibly boring. But the last 2.5 minutes of that football game was awesome. It came down to literally the 1-yard line. The Edmonton Elks were driving the field for the last drive of the game, and they got down to the 1-yard line, and they couldn't quite punch the ball across the end zone. So they start the season 0-1. Trevor Harris, quarterback for the Edmonton Elks, threw 3 interceptions. A lot of people aren't expecting the Ottawa Redblacks to do much this season. However, they shut a lot of people up with a 16-12 victory in week 1. The Montreal Alouettes, of course, had a bye week as well to kick off week 1 of the Canadian Football League season. Of course, I am riding solo again tonight, so I do encourage you to leave your questions, your comments, or if you want my opinion on anything sports related, make sure you drop them in the comments, and I will be sure to get to those because I want to hear what you guys have to say about anything. Could be CFL, could be NFL, could be NHL, could be MLB, whatever you want. Drop a comment in the comment section, and we can discuss right here live on Wendell Clark's Classic Grill and Bar's Facebook page, on the YXE Sports Podcast Facebook page as well. So it was so great to see the Canadian Football League season finally return after 600 and some days. A lot of people weren't expecting the CFL, or a lot of people were expecting the CFL to kind of be in a dire situation. However, a lot of credit goes to Canadian Football League Commissioner Randy Ambrosie. Of course, I've been hard on him on the podcast, but I do have to give him a little bit of credit here because he was one of the guys that made sure that the CFL could play in 2021, of course, with all the teams and all the players and all the owners and all that sort of thing. A lot of the governments as well allowing the Canadian Football League to play in their respective provinces. But a lot of credit does go to CFL Commissioner Randy Ambrosie because he knows how important it is that the CFL plays in 2021. The Edmonton Elks did have a little bit of a COVID scare, but I think they had two personnel test positive. However, they were able to go ahead with their game on Saturday, and nothing else has come of that yet anyway. So hopefully the rest of the CFL season goes on without a hitch. Of course, new to the CFL this year is single game sports betting. And I don't know if you saw any of the CFL on TSN coverage, but you kind of could see the columns and they had the over-unders and stuff like that. I'm not entirely sure how the whole betting thing works. Sometimes I'll just throw like $10, $15, $20 down. Okay, maybe not $20, $5, $10 down, maybe the odd toonie or loony, and I just hope for the best. So that's what I know about betting, but that's going to be another way for the Canadian Football League to generate revenue throughout 2021. So week 2 kicks off this upcoming Thursday for the week 2 of the CFL season. And of course, the Riders are in action as they host the Hamilton Tiger Cats down in Regina in what is sure to be another sold-out Mosaic Stadium on Saturday, August the 14th. Speaking of Canada, the Toronto Blue Jays, of course, have returned to Canada, and they are on absolute fire since returning to the Rogers Centre. They returned home to Toronto on July 30th or 31st, one of the 2 days. They just finished an 11-game homestand, and on that homestand, they went 9-2. That's right. They only lost 2 games. They won the series against the Boston Red Sox. Yesterday was an absolute thriller. I was over at Ray Morrison's house watching the Boston Red Sox Toronto Blue Jays game. Might have been returning his weed trimmer, but if you saw the episode 2 weeks ago, you'll know what I'm talking about. But whatever, that's all in the past now. Like I said, a 9-8 victory over the Boston Red Sox. These are going to be the teams that the Toronto Blue Jays are going to have to beat if they want to try to sneak into the playoffs. George Springer hit a 3-run home run in the bottom of the 8th inning yesterday afternoon to propel the Toronto Blue Jays to a 9-8 victory. They are 3 games back of the second wild card spot in the American League. And of course, the 2 wild card teams make the playoffs. That was a rule that was just put in not too long ago as part of the MLB's expanded playoffs. So there are now 2 wild card teams that will get into the Major League Baseball playoffs. And the Toronto Blue Jays are 3 games back of that second wild card spot. And they're still probably about 6 to 8 weeks of the season left. So a lot of time for the Toronto Blue Jays. I think they're something like 10 games over 500 as well. Their pitching has been decent. Of course, everybody wanted them to make some changes and some trades at the trade deadline, which was on July 31st, and they did that. They solidified their bullpen. Yesterday was really the only Blue Jays game that I saw over the course of the weekend, but from what everybody else said throughout this 9-2 homestand that they were on, the bullpen and the starting pitching, the starting rotation has been absolutely magnificent for the Toronto Blue Jays. And it's the age-old adage, right? I mean, you can talk about it in the MLB or in baseball, more so for hockey and maybe football, but it's the old cliche saying of defense wins championships. Well, the Toronto Blue Jays, I guess that can apply to baseball as well, because if you have a good pitching rotation and nobody can hit off of you, well, then you're going to give yourself a chance to win every single game. So the Toronto Blue Jays, kind of the talk on Twitter and the talk on social media this past weekend was some serious 2015 vibes. Not sure if you remember when the Toronto Blue Jays went back on that big run when they returned to the playoffs for the first time in 2015 since they won the World Series in 1993. But they went on that absolute tear throughout the course of July and August in 2015 when they had guys like Josh Donaldson and Jose Bautista. They went out and got David Price and Troy Tulowitzki at the trade deadline back 6 years ago, and they ended up making it to the American League Championship Series before they lost to the Kansas City Royals. But that's the talk on social media, some serious 2015 vibes. Now they still have some work to do before they get back to the playoffs in 2021, but you can kind of see the similarities with guys like Bo Bichette, Vladimir Guerrero Jr., Hyun-Jin Ryu, Robbie Ray on the mound. So the Toronto Blue Jays are looking good. Like I said, they're about 10 games above 500, and they won a massive series against the Boston Red Sox over the weekend. They head out to Anaheim to play the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim. That is a series that is going to kick off on Tuesday out in California. So today, if you're watching the live version of the YXE Sports Podcast, today is the off day for the Toronto Blue Jays. And then they return to action tomorrow in Los Angeles, or technically Anaheim. Why they're called the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim, I really have no idea. I could do some digging on that, but who's got the time? I think they head out to Seattle after they play the Angels, so they're on a little bit of a West Coast swing as the month of August winds down. Of course, we're just about at the halfway mark of the month of August, which is hard to believe. So the Toronto Blue Jays are on an absolute roll, 9-2 in their last 11 games, and hopefully they're hoping that it can continue on as they head out west to face the Angels and then the Seattle Mariners. Both of those teams, the Angels and the Mariners, are also chasing the Toronto Blue Jays in the American League wildcard race. So the Blue Jays have a real big opportunity as they head out west. At least that's what I'm telling my guys. If I'm Charlie Montoyo heading out west, they have a real big opportunity to pull away from those teams that are chasing them. And one of the teams that the Toronto Blue Jays are chasing are the New York Yankees, who, of course, are in the American League East as well. So that's what's new on the Toronto Blue Jays front. Of course, we are live at Wendell Clark's Classic Grill and Bar, as we are every single Monday. And, of course, like I said, week one of the CFL season had just kicked off this past weekend. And you can come on down to Wendell Clark's Classic Grill and Bar for every single Saskatchewan Roughrider game, because I think they have some great specials. $5 beverages for when the Saskatchewan Roughriders play. I was talking to Doyle earlier today. They were saying that it was absolutely jam-packed here on the weekend, and especially on Friday, so that's always good to hear. $5 bevies. You also have an opportunity to win a Ryder mini fridge, and I was actually talking about this last night, how I need an additional fridge in my house, because I just have the one, and I'm sure you can all assume what the second one would be used for. So I got to see if Doyle can backdoor me a Ryder mini fridge, or maybe one of the Wendell Clark ones that's sitting behind me here at Wendell Clark's Classic Grill and Bar. But $5 bevies and also a chance to win a Ryder mini fridge. All you have to do is come on down, purchase a bevy, maybe purchase a nappy, and you'll be entered to win that Saskatchewan Roughrider beer fridge. Of course, a lot of talk has been made recently about the National Lacrosse League as well. Everybody's favorite team, the Saskatchewan Rush, at least around here, are one step to returning back to play. Opening weekend for the National Lacrosse League is going to be December 3rd and 4th. The Saskatchewan Rush are going to start the 2021 season out in Halifax on December 4th. Now, this isn't new news. Of course, the schedule has been out for a little while yet, but the Saskatchewan Rush will be starting in Halifax on December the 4th. And what came down the wire a few weeks ago, I've been calling for this. Ray Morrison, my partner in crime, has been calling for this. You need a TV deal, a non-streaming TV deal, and the National Lacrosse League finally has that. They have inked a multi-year deal with TSN, the sports network out of Toronto, for to get some NLL games on the air. So what it's going to look like is that there's going to be a National Lacrosse League game of the week. So if I had to guess, I would just assume that there would be one game a week that they would pick to be broadcasted on TSN, which is still better than nothing. And comprehensive, what they're calling comprehensive playoff action as well. So make sure you dial into TSN for all the latest on the National Lacrosse League, the game of the week, comprehensive playoff action, and it sounds like they're going to be covering the entire championship series, which the Saskatchewan Rush are in more often than not, especially since they made the move here to Saskatoon and the SaskTel Center. So hopefully the Saskatchewan Rush can get back there in 2021 for the championship series, as everybody's excited that the National Lacrosse League is returning, and it is a multi-year partnership between NLL and TSN. For those of you that like to watch or stream TSN, TSN Go, TSN Direct, not entirely sure how that stuff works, to be completely honest. I'm more of a traditional guy, a traditional cable guy, but there's going to be some content for that as well for the NLL game of the week and just the NLL coverage in general. The NLL is expanding as well, so this is really good news for the game of lacrosse. Of course, there is a new team, the Panther City team. They're playing out of Texas, and then Wayne Gretzky also got in on a ownership team as well. And it sounds like the Great One had a little bit of say in this TSN thing. That's just what it sounds like to me based off of what I've read. So, hopefully the TSN and the NLL partnership goes off without a hitch. It's just so great. I'm just so excited for sports to come back. So I just can't tell you how ecstatic I am for sports to return to the SaskTel Center. The Saskatchewan Rattlers, of course, have been the first team to return to the SaskTel Center. They were at home yesterday. Unfortunately, they lost. So you could consider this a rebuilding year for the Saskatchewan Rattlers, but it's going to be interesting because they're kind of the benchmark of teams that have returned to Saskatoon. And, to show the rest of the teams in Saskatoon how they can return and how they can return safely to the SaskTel Center. So you got to give a big kudos to the Saskatchewan Rattlers as they have been the first team to return to the SaskTel Center. The Saskatoon Blades are returning to the SaskTel Center in September, and the Saskatchewan Rush will be returning sometime in December. Not entirely sure. The entire schedule isn't out yet, but the opening weekend, we do know that the Saskatchewan Rush will be on the road. Monty wants to know where my dad is, and Ray Morrison he needs some holidays. So that's what he's doing right now. He's letting me do this whole thing solo, and he's going to come back if the fire is too great for me to put out. But he is on holidays right now. I said that I would do this and give this a shot solo, and that's exactly what I've been doing. So he'll be back eventually, I'm sure. Unless I don't want him back. Right, Monty? I mean, that's the other thing, too. I just might not want him back. I like this setup. There's less stuff to take down. There's less stuff to set up for producer Ian and his team. I don't really know that. I'm just assuming that because I never get here early enough for setup anyways. But I can take down, and I'm a heck of a guy at taking stuff down. Just don't ask me to set it up. Same thing goes at my house. Doing a bunch of house renos as well. Terrible. I can destruct things. I can't construct things. So that's been quite the challenge for me, but there's only been a few what we'll call differences of opinion in the Morrison household. We'll call it. Monty wants to know if I need another partner, and I don't know. I think that I got a pretty good grip on this, Monty. I appreciate the concern or the reaching out, whatever you want to call it. But we will be getting some guests in the near future. We're not going to say too many of our secrets yet, but we do have some guests lined up for the near future. We just got to find the time to go out and do it. There's also some exciting things happening, not only with the YXE Sports Podcast, but under our parent company, No YXE, as well. So make sure you stay tuned for that because there's some exciting things happening. Producer Ian and Deborah, who's not here with us tonight, but they've been hard at work making sure that the YXE Sports Podcast goes off without a hitch. And also a couple of other great shows that No YXE has gone off without a hitch as well. Correct me if I'm wrong, Ian, but I believe they're all on summer holidays now. So they're all on summer holidays now. So the YXE Sports Podcast is the only one that's, not to brag, just kidding. All the shows on No YXE are fantastic. So look forward to make sure you keep tabs on the YXE Sports Podcast because, like I said, there is going to be some exciting things happening come the end of the month, maybe come September. Maybe we're going to team up with Wendell Clark's Classic Grill and Bar. Not entirely sure. There's really only one way to find out. Maybe have some special guests when they roll through town. I don't know. There's only one way to find out, and that's by making sure you keep your eyes and your ears locked on the YXE Sports Podcast. I'm just starting to ramble off about random things now, but to recap, the Saskatchewan Roughriders are back in midseason form, and I don't mean the first half that they had, because the first half that they had was awesome, but I mean how the fact that they almost blew it. That's what I mean when I say they're back in midseason form. Like I said, they were up 32-0 or whatever it was, just to recap, and they won, 33-29, so they allowed the BC Lions to get back in it. I do have to say, a cool part for the BC Lions is their starting quarterback on Friday was a kid by the name of Nathan Rourke, and he's a Canadian. And if you follow the Canadian Football League, then you know just how rare it is that Canadian quarterbacks actually get to start in the Canadian Football League. So not that I'm a BC Lions fan by any stretch of the imagination, but I do have to say that it was pretty cool to see a Canadian kid start at quarterback in the Canadian Football League. And if he continues to get starts and continues to play well, then that's going to pave the way for other Canadian Football League quarterbacks to possibly start in the CFL. Like I said, so a good win for the Saskatchewan Roughriders, and we'll have to see how they do against the Hamilton Tiger Cats on August the 14th. The Toronto Blue Jays, 9-2 in the past 11 games. They're heading out west this upcoming week, starting tomorrow. So make sure you tune in to that. Another thing on social media I saw in regards to the Toronto Blue Jays is play-by-play guy Buck Martinez. He's either loved or he's either hated. And I personally err more on the side of love. I don't mind Buck Martinez at all, but there's a lot of people that don't have any time for him. But for me, he gets the job done. And, of course, the National Lacrosse League at TSN with the multi-year partnership, which I'm super excited for. If there's a Rush game that's maybe out of town, there's nothing better than getting together with your buddies and watching the Rush. So, and then, of course, some exciting things happening between the YXE Sports Podcast and Wendell Clark's Classic Grill and Bar. So that pretty much wraps it up for this week's episode of the YXE Sports Podcast. Thank you so much for bearing with me and me only. And we're going to do this again next Monday. I might be solo. I might have a guest. Ray might be back. I really have no clue what's going to happen. I just get here and roll with the punches. So thanks for tuning in. Until next Monday, stay safe.